Good evening and welcome to episode 14 of the Unhinged Dads podcast. I am
Woo.
Brian De Almeida. With me is my exceptionally unhinged, occasionally, co-host Dave Pasco. Dave, how are you tonight?
Uh, I, I could use more sleep.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a
situation
given.
normal. Situation normal. No, I'm actually doing in general fairly well, although the things are kind of in a holding pattern in general, which is not my favorite place to be, but
No.
you surf the chaos.
Some days that is all that we do. For me, I'm pretty good. I've slept better in the last little while. Although I've learned that on the backside of sandpaper, you can still wear holes through your skin. My finger and thumb here in sanding the juice grooves of this stack of cutting boards, I have actually worn through the skin.
Yet that sounds uncomfortable.
Well, I stopped before it started bleeding, so
That's good.
it hurts if you put pressure on it. As it turns out, I don't have a hard deadline on these, so I can take a couple of days and go work on something else until my fingers are, functional again. So no big
Yeah,
deal.
hands are rather important for things like woodworking and various other, skilled labor.
Yeah,
And the curious part is that hands are usually what gets injured.
yeah. Joel asks sanding blocks.
Yep.
Yeah, for everything but the juice grooves. Because that groove around, it's rounded. The only thing that fits in the profile is my fingertip and my thumb tip. And when you're sanding the end grain of hickory, walnut, hard maple, sapele, purple heart, and bloodwood,
Yeah, those are tough woods in
those
general.
are they're all tough woods, and it's twice as hard when you're sanding the end grain as opposed to sanding long grain. But it is to help a good friend pay for all the inherent costs of serious cancer. So it's worthwhile.
Absolutely.
So let's lean into our questions 3. So,
Yes.
Dave, what have you worked on for self improvement this week?
I have been paying very close attention when my eldest starts to get a little big for his britches, and I am working very hard to help him step back from the precipice of foolish behavior. And because I think that will serve him well, at the very least, it sets me up as an ally.
Yeah, acute testosterone poisoning is a thing, guys.
Oh, man.
And it always seems to be twice as bad as you remember yourself being.
Really, really does. It is like I have vague memories of speaking intemperately at points, but I I have sudden greater respect for my father at various points for not stringing me up by my toes from
Or
some
just locking you out of the house.
or throwing me in a headlock and tossing me on the floor.
Yeah,
Things, all sorts of things that didn't befall me that could have.
yeah. That's the kind of thing that you talk to your dad about now, and he just laughs.
Yep.
Goes, yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
And you go, no, I'm sure I wasn't that bad. And oh
Oh yeah.
boy,
At
let me
least.
tell you.
Yeah. No. I'm looking forward to our oldest actually hitting some growth, because right now he is not tall,
No,
although he can almost do a pull up.
that's pretty good. But yeah, he needs a little more body mass before he can really move a heavy bag.
Yeah.
Because
I
when
mean,
you're small, punching those is just
unless
is
I'm the one
like,
swinging him at it.
yeah. But we don't do that.
No, well, not unless it's everybody's actually just having fun.
Well, yes.
We don't do that punitively.
No.
And you, sir?
But me,
Mm,
um, I have been, this is related to my number two.
mm.
I am working on internalizing the notion that I can make mistakes without me actually, just being a sucky, awful person.
You know, when you figure out the secret of that one, do let me know.
Oh, believe me, I will preach it to the world if I ever figure it out. But yeah, we've been facing some things,
Mhm.
and that has been looming. And I am actively working to counter the impulse to go, well, I just suck in general.
Yeah, no, that one is tough. Every time it's there are points of struggling with depression symptoms, particularly, and the rumination and negative self talk habits that are really easy to fall into yet again, um,
Yep.
and working hard to not.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But it's necessary.
absolutely.
So, what is something that we screwed up this week? Oh,
Yeah,
hold on.
yeah, that's
Nope,
appropriate.
Joseph's got it. My wife Gibbs slaps me when I say I suck.
Yes,
My wife,
I
my wife won't smack me upside the head. I won't say that I don't deserve it, but she definitely corrects me.
yes, when I get a lot of encouragement, and
Me
when
too.
it gets too bad, I get something along the lines of "Stop being mean to the man I love," which is like, wow,
Yeah,
that's okay, that's fair. I need to.
yeah, that one stings a little bit though,
It does. It does. I.
because now it feels like I'm not just being mean to myself, but I'm being mean to her, and I don't like that.
But does it work? Maybe.
Which
Does
a
does
little
does
bit, yes,
extra incentive help? Sometimes,
yes,
yes. It usually gets me to pause.
yes, and go, okay,
Hmm.
okay, you're right,
Yep. Yep.
but still,
I
and it's
don't.
no, stop.
Yeah.
Okay, so what did we screw up?
Um, I have one of the issues with struggling with depression. The poor sleep in is one of the major triggers for significant acute depression symptoms. The aforementioned rumination, and which in this case is the technical term for um, basically internal catastrophizing of everything, and uh, one sidestep for that is escapism. And so I have been not as assiduous at time management as I would like, which is to say,
Okay,
I've been wasting a lot of time reading fluff on Royal Road, which is fantastic stuff. And I can always cloak it in the camouflage of I'm doing writing research,
mm-hmm.
which is true,
do
but
you do you actually believe that though?
um, it is both of these things can be true at the same time. They are not mutually
Yeah,
contradictory.
good job.
Yeah.
So what I screwed up, this is actually something I did 5 or 6 years ago, but in therapy, talking with one of my daughters, um, she mentioned something that has been living rent free in her head for the last several years. It goes back to about when we were getting married and moved in and stuff. And I made an unfavorable comparison between her and her mother, which
Ouch.
is a really shitty thing to do.
Yeah.
Um, And that has been living rent free in her head for the last 5 or 6 years. She says, "Well, I always just, you said that I'm too much like my mom, and so I figure you'll probably never be able to like me if I remind you of her too much."
Ooh.
And I went, "Oh fuck."
Yeah.
And I said, thinking back to that time, it actually was a pretty stressful time.
Hmm.
I said I'm pretty sure I can understand the context in which I said that, and at the time I probably did mean to make you feel bad because I was annoyed with you.
Right.
I said, but no, you don't actually remind me of your mother. I don't think of her when I see you. I think of my daughter, who's awesome.
Yeah.
And I said, I am so sorry. And she goes, well, maybe I'm just making a too big a deal out of it. And I said, no. So I'm 43 years old, and I still have things that my dad said to me when I was your age living rent free in my head, and he's been dead for 16 years.
Right.
I said, it was just, I said, no, this is the effect it had on you. That makes it a big deal.
Yeah.
That makes it important to you. That makes it important to me. So we're going to do some more work with the family therapist to try and repair that and help excise that from living rent free
Yeah.
in her head, because that's a hell of a weight to carry. Oh, I'm too much like my mom. My dad will never like me.
Right.
I mean, you want to talk about impetus to spiral and feel like a piece of shit. There you go.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Because I managed to do exactly what I have been very consciously trying not to do. So yeah, that's where that whole, working on forgiveness and understanding that even people doing well can make mistakes
Yeah.
is a thing. So celebrating wins. What did we do well this week?
Oh goodness. What have we done well this week? It's been like a lot of little things this week. Getting back into working out more regularly, getting the kids to work out with me again. My son can almost do a pull up, which for a not quite 12-year-old is actually pretty good.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, making sure everybody's gotten fed, and Robbie has gotten as regular a sleep schedule as we can arrange, um, which is always tough. There hasn't really been a whole lot of big things recently.
there isn't always.
Yeah.
For me, this came out of talking with my therapist, which I guess the technical term for what I managed to pull off, they call it an ACE, an adverse childhood event.
Yeah.
Which the first real research on those came out about 25 years ago and started a lot of kind of small movements within psychology and psychiatry circles.
Hmm.
And we're getting back results from kind of the second round of research that spawned.
Okay.
And what they are finding is the most effective way to counter adverse childhood experiences is to intentionally create positive childhood experiences.
Yeah.
So I am being very intentional, and this is something that I need to do long term, of trying to generate positive interactions. That go beyond the basics of life, of getting everybody where they need to go, getting them fed
Yeah.
and stuff. We actually, for the first time in quite some time, we went out. We went out as a family on Sunday. One of my sons had already seen the Mario Galaxy movie like the week prior
Okay.
and wanted to go see it again because he's 11. And so my wife was going to take him, and they were talking. He asked me, "Hey, Brian, do you want to go?" And I said, "Well, do you want me to go?" He's like, "Well, you can." I was like, "Okay, bud. What I mean to say is, I have no strong feelings one way or the other about going to see the Mario movie. On my own, I probably wouldn't go see it. If you want me to come with you, I will happily come with you."
Mm-hmm.
He's like, "That's weird. So are you going to go?" I said, "Sure, I'll go."
Yeah.
And that turned into all of his siblings and the various hangers on from the teenagers. There ended up being 10 of us at the movie theater, taking up an entire row to go see the Mario Galaxy movie, which
Fun.
we haven't done anything all together for quite some time. It's hard with a house full of teenagers.
The logistics are insane for that many people, period, let alone that many people with who are basically nearing adult status and have their own friend circles and lives and schedules and interests,
Yeah,
etc.
all three girls have jobs.
Mm-hmm.
Two of them have boyfriends. They have they have stuff going on with school. I mean, hell, prom was on Saturday
Yeah, yeah.
for both of the girls' high schools.
It's that time of year. God bless.
Yeah, I mean, our school year's over in 5 weeks,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
suddenly it's like, when the hell? Christmas was just like a month ago, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I am
It's race by.
focusing on, and this week I feel I have succeeded at intentionally creating positive childhood experiences.
Yeah.
While we're also going to go through what we need to deal with shitty things I said and did from years ago,
Yep.
which when we get through that process, it'll be good, because right now I feel like a real shitheel.
That's fair.
And and I should.
Yeah.
I should feel bad. I mean, you could, say something that lives rent free in your kids mind for years.
I am certain I have done something. I'm certain I have. They aren't
We all
at
have.
a place where they'll tell me yet, but we'll get to that point.
Yeah. But and I realized that something I said pretty much offhand, and when I was frustrated by a whole bunch of things, has been heavily affecting her for years. Yeah, I feel terrible. And yeah, we're going to do what we need to fix this.
Yep.
I'd much rather that she be confronting this now at 17 with me than be confronting it in her 30s when I'm dead, which is, what I've tried to do. I think it's easier when you can interact with the person.
Yes.
Well, at least if they're willing to try.
Mm-hmm.
Which I am. So, on to our topic, which I will admit, in my many hours of sanding with the with the stereo on in the shop, was inspired by my favorite Sabaton album, The Last Stand.
Yeah, there's a lot of good tracks there.
Yeah, and there's a lot there that just resonate a certain way that other things don't. Mm-hmm. And that's tied into why we titled this episode The Ultimate Male Fantasy, with the obligatory "no, not that, you pervs."
Right.
No, we're not. No, it does not involve anything that resembles spring break. Yeah.
Yeah.
But in thinking about the topic, I came up that I put in the description a couple of movie lines that
Mm-hmm.
really stick. From Black Hawk Down, which I think culturally for our little like micro generation ended up being a like hugely influential film.
It was significant. It hit at a point, and it was somewhat hard to quantify. It was very real in a way that a lot of the things that that occurred to us weren't.
Hmm.
We Most of us missed, you know, a lot of things by just a little bit. I remember, the Berlin Wall coming down, but as an 8-year-old, it's kind of like, well, what is that? That this is a. I recognize that this is a big deal, but it doesn't mean
Yep.
much to me. See, also Desert Storm. Uh, I remember a lot of these things, but they didn't mean much to me.
Yeah, the Berlin Wall is one of my earliest memories of feeling like some kind of connection to the rest of the world. And I
Mhm.
remember I was 6. I was 6.5 years old, November of 1989,
Yeah.
and I wandered into the living room. My parents are sitting on the couch watching TV and like crying, and I see these people, breaking something. I go, "Why are they breaking it?"
Yeah.
I was told you'll understand when you're older. Oh, I do.
Yeah. It's not the best response, but it is a true response.
Oh, and yeah, Joseph is one of us. Says I had Desert Storm trading cards. You know, I was let's see, I was 8, 9 years old. I had just turned 9 when that happened,
Yeah.
and my friends thought that I was really weird because instead of playing like cops and robbers, I wanted to play Americans and Iraqis, and they're like, "What's an Iraqi? What even is that? Why are you? You're so weird. Stop."
That's funny.
But dude, I was fascinated
That's fair.
watching the coverage. I mean, and you remember the news videos of all the AA fire over Baghdad and stuff as things are blowing up. That
Oh
was
yeah,
the coolest thing I had ever seen.
it's fair.
Which may not be the healthiest fascination, but here we are.
Well, yeah, it's right.
And Joel remembers those cards too. Oh yeah, grainy night vision video. What
Yep.
was that? Like second, first or second gen night vision?
Oh yeah.
That was cool shit.
It was stuff that I'd only seen in movies, and
That you'd
and
seen imagined.
and it was, that was clearly fake stuff. This was
Hmm.
actually real. This was real. Somebody was really doing this somewhere on the planet. It was so cool.
Yeah, I remember seeing gunsight footage from an Abrams on the Highway of Death. In thermal, where you can see those sabos just boom,
Oh
blowing the turrets right off of T-80s.
yeah.
But for Black Hawk Down, the line that stuck out for me was Gordy's gone, man. I'll be outside. Which if you remember the whole mess that was Gothic Serpent, you had the first helicopter come down with a bunch of Rangers,
Hmm.
and then one of the choppers that was flying support there also got shot down.
Yep.
One of the pilots was killed. The other, Michael Durant, was um, trapped, and you had a couple of Delta snipers who were in an orbiting helicopter trying to keep him from being overrun in hopes that somebody could make it to him, which was not happening.
Yep.
If you've read the book, there were multiple attempts to get ground forces out there, and they could not push through Mogadishu for a multitude of reasons.
Oh yeah.
So you had Gary Gordon and Randy Shughart who basically yelled at their command to allow them to debark from that helicopter to try and protect him on the ground until they finally said, "Fine, do it." And we know that they were both killed,
Yep.
with the report. Various reports say from anywhere from 25 to 100 dead Somalis around that helicopter that those two guys took with them. Gary Gordon was the first one, and that's where That's where the slightly dramatized scene from the movie came from. Is Sughart went and gave Durant Gordon's carbine.
Hmm.
Says, "Gordy's gone, man. I'll be outside." And both of them, their bodies were mutilated and paraded around Mogadishu for days.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Look at us.
And
We killed the big bad Americans.
the sheer balls on those guys, because
Hmm.
they knew when they got off that helicopter there was practically zero chance that they were coming back, but they were not going to leave a brother in arms to his
Oh well.
fate on his
Yeah.
own. And as it happened, a slightly more cool-headed commander ended up, commander as much as any of the Somali forces had commanders, warlord really,
Yeah.
ended up running that show there where they took Durant hostage, and he eventually was repatriated and became a United States congressman. But just that whole thing, there's a romance to it. You go to the ancients. Everybody's familiar with the Battle of Thermopylae and the 300 Spartans. If for no other reason than because of the comic book adaptation movie that took a
uh,
lot of license.
took a lot of license.
But you go from one of the Roman chroniclers, Simonedes of Ceos. Go tell the Spartans, stranger passing by, that here, obedient to their laws, we lie. The epitaph. Now, keep in mind there were also about 2,000 other Greeks there.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, Leonidas and his 300 Spartans with assorted Greek militia stood off the army of Xerxes, of the world's very first superpower in Persia.
Hmm.
That basically forced the Persians to wait another year before they were able to invade Greece, which gave the rest of the city states time to marshal their forces and counter them.
Yep.
Had the stand at Thermopylae not happened, the world may be very, very different today because all of Greece could have fallen.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Well, that and the entire Persian fleet was sunk in a storm. That was also a major contributing factor.
That helps.
But you know, those were men who walked into a narrow pass and knew that they were not leaving,
Yep.
and yet they went anyways, and they fought for days. Why? Protect their families, protect their homeland. Now, of all the Greek city-states, Sparta is the one that generally deserves the least praise.
They Sparta was not what we would consider a particularly enlightened society.
No,
They
they
were
were.
they were not great people. These citizens was a small group who held vast quantities of slaves to do basically everything,
So that
and
they could focus on the martial aspect.
making war.
Yep.
Yep.
And of course, there's the whole eugenics side.
Oh yeah.
I mean, as a society, extraordinarily brutal that I think has been a little unfairly lionized and whitewashed.
Mm-hmm.
But for their martial prowess, is primarily known because of Thermopylae.
Yep.
So for all of that, those 300, 2,000 plus men changed the course of the modern world, and here we are thousands of years later, and we still remember them. We know their names in
Yeah.
many
And
cases.
and we have a Greek society, not a
Hmm.
Persian one.
Yeah. Then, of course, other famous last stands in cinema. You
Oh
have the
yeah.
Battle of Helm's Deep.
Helm's Deep is a great one. Um, in part because fictionally, it had somewhere to go afterwards.
They
A lot
didn't. They well, that
of,
wasn't certain at the time.
absolutely, but a lot of last stands, from our vantage point of history, things happened afterwards. The Battle of Marathon happened after Thermopylae,
Yep.
but Leonidas wasn't there to fight in it.
No, he wasn't. I think in cinema, Helm's Deep is one of the best. Um, to be a little loose with the term, ancient-ish to us.
Yeah.
I guess it would be more of a medieval battle scene. I think it's one of the better ones out there. But
Hmm.
I pulled a little bit from Théoden's speech at the charge of the Rohirrim
Yep.
on the Battle of Gondor, the Battle of the Pelennor Fields.
Yep.
Arise, arise, riders of Théoden. Blah 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 blah. Ride now, ride to ruin and the world's ending.
Yep.
Death, death, death. Fourth Eorlingas. And then we see and it actually gave a pretty good show of the power of a cavalry charge,
Hmm.
particularly when your orcs are using 6 foot long pikes and are holding them as opposed to bracing them against the ground.
Yeah. Yeah. It turns out, um, hundreds of pounds of charging
Thousands.
horseflesh, yeah, are pretty significant.
Yeah. Although you could have asked the Scots how to counter that with 20-foot pikes that are braced against the ground as opposed to just held in hand like those dumb orcs. But
It does work better that way, yes.
another one I mentioned, the Battle of Stamford Bridge,
Hmm.
England, 1066,
Yep.
was ended up being a victory for the English, but that was a invading Norwegian army that
Yeah.
managed to be surprised by the English army. However, they had to cross the titular Stamford Bridge in order to get to them, and one Viking warrior armed with an axe held that bridge, took down at least 40 other men, and stymied the entire English army for a period. He was eventually taken down by an English soldier who floated underneath the bridge and stuck his spear through the planks of the bridge to stab him underneath his mail shirt. That gave the Norwegians time to form a shield wall and really regret having left their armor behind, as they were killed almost to a man.
Yep.
Of course, a few months later in the Battle of Hastings, the English were quite thoroughly destroyed.
Well, and they arguably shouldn't have been, but that is a different episode, really.
Yeah, but one warrior standing held
Hmm.
back an entire army and gave his brothers in arms a chance, at least.
Yeah.
Had they not been held up at that bridge, they would have been flanked and overrun with very little effort.
Yeah. I really liked Sabaton's rendition of Shirayama. Um,
Yes.
uh, Glamorized as the Last Samurai with Tom Cruise, although
Yeah,
the actual historical, the that was the Satsuma Rebellion, I want to say,
I
um,
believe so. It was kind
and
of it really was kind of the last stand of the old Japanese nobility against the new
it was.
industrialized state.
But the only reason that that was the issue was that they had run out of bullets. They
Yeah,
had
the
been
samurai were
the the Meiji army for days at that point, but then they just ran out of ammunition.
yeah. Yeah,
And
there
so
was the yeah.
I love that one. They had the one of the best gunnery schools in their lord's domain, and that was part of the problem. Is he felt that the Meiji Restoration was a taking things too far. and so rebelled, and a number of samurai went with him. Um, and by the time things fell apart for them, they had been fighting for days. They had run out of ammunition, and then they basically had a party all night with poetry contests and feats of skill and drinking each other's health, what there was left of it. Meanwhile, the entire Meiji army was cowering, listening to them because
Yeah,
these men were terrifying.
yeah. And, speaking of the last samurai, there was none of this bullshit of the sword being nobler than the gun. As soon as they found out about them,
Oh,
samurai were all about firearms.
yeah, because their primary weapons were the spear and the bow anyway. Swords were
Yes, not the katana.
a badge of status,
Hmm.
not their primary weapon.
Yes, as much as Kurosawa would have us think otherwise. But
Yeah,
sword fights just make for great cinema. I
the
can't.
yeah, it's always.
But the one big last stand that I wanted to dive into a little bit
Mm,
before we go past it is
do it.
just me indulging in being a naval history nerd,
Uh huh.
and we go to World War II, a piece of the Battle of Leyte Gulf, which is of course the reinvasion of the Philippines. Old Dugout Doug making his return as he promised after he slunk away and left his men to the Bataan Death March,
Yeah.
which, they put up he had a statue put up on that beach. It washed away in a typhoon in 2008, and nobody bothered to replace it.
Oh darn.
Yeah, I'm not a MacArthur fan. In fact, that's how I became friends with James Young.
Yeah.
Is I picked up his alt history, and he killed MacArthur. And I messaged him on Facebook. I said, "Dude, you killed MacArthur." He's like, "You're damn right, I did." And I said, "Did we just become friends?"
Right.
And
Yep.
that's literally how that happened.
Yeah.
But
James is a lot of fun.
I love him. But a little piece of the Battle of Leyte Gulf, couple days after the invasion had started, um, Japanese were still hoping for the decisive battle that would stop things, although they had no hope of doing it.
Hmm.
I'll get to the
Yep.
comments in a few minutes here. We're gonna go through this first. This little bit, gets referred to as various things about, usually as the battle off of Samar,
Yep.
which the Japanese had divided their naval force into two bodies. One was their fleet carriers, which at that point were basically useless due to severe shortages of skilled pilots and general shortage of materiel for airplanes. And Admiral Kurita's center force, which was composed of a heavy force of battleships and cruisers. In fact, I've got the force composition here. 4 battleships: the Yamato, the largest battleship ever put to sea; the Nagato, Kongo, and Haruna, 4 battleships; 6 heavy cruisers, 2 light cruisers, and 11 destroyers. Now, the standard armament on Japanese heavy cruisers was 5 twin mounts of 8-inch guns. If I remember correctly, Haruna carried 8 16-inch guns, while Nagato and Kongo both carried 8 14-inch guns, and Yamato, of course, carried the largest guns ever put to sea at 18.1 inches. 3 triple mounts of 18-inch guns firing 3,200-pound shells. Its secondary battery was 4 triple mounts of 6.1-inch guns, and then 10 twin mounts of 5-inch guns. The the little task force that ended up facing the Japanese main force, because Bill Halsey went and took his main force to go chasing after the Japanese fleet carriers in an intended diversion, was a little task force called Taffy 3, which was composed of 6 Casablanca-class escort carriers. These were smaller than the Essex fleet carriers. They were slower. They were used primarily for ferrying aircraft and for supporting amphibious invasions. They were not meant to ever be engaging in fleet actions. They were completely unarmored. Their flight decks were unarmored. They were dependent on catapults to launch aircraft, which the fleet carriers were not. Due to their short flight decks, they could not carry the newer Hellcat and Helldiver bombers. Hellcat fighters and Helldiver bombers. They were still running Wildcats and TBF Avengers. However, since they were not intended to ever engage in fleet actions, they did not carry armor-piercing bomb armaments, and they carried very few torpedoes. Their torpedo planes were mostly used for anti-submarine and were usually outfitted with depth charges.
Yeah.
And they were in the process of providing air support to the landing beaches in Leyte. Those 6 carriers were guarded by 3 Fletcher class destroyers, which the Fletcher class is the most produced warship class in history.
And but there's a reason for that.
Oh yeah, they were a damn good ship at just about everything. But the Fletchers displaced 2,100 tons, compared to Yamato alone displacing 65,000 tons. Were armed with 5-inch guns and carried 2 quintuple mounts of 21-inch torpedo tubes, so 10 torpedo tubes. Accompanying them were 3 John C. Butler-class destroyer escorts, the Dennis, the John C. Butler, and the Samuel B. Roberts. Those were primarily anti-submarine platforms that were used primarily for convoy escort. They displaced 1,350 tons, carried 2 5-inch guns, and a single triple mount torpedo tube. And they very rarely practiced with torpedoes because they were not supposed to be engaging in surface actions. So, early that morning, these two forces come together. There's a whole bunch of maneuvering in and out of storm squalls, lots of smoke screens laid. But over the course of that morning, you had these 3 destroyers and 3 destroyer escorts, some of them engaging in a gunnery battle with the Japanese main line. If I remember correctly, Heerman and Samuel B. Roberts spent hours and exhausted all of their 5-inch ammunition on Japanese heavy cruisers. In fact, they got so close to them after they'd run out of torpedoes that the Japanese cruisers could not fire on them because they were
depress the guns
low. They couldn't depress their guns enough.
Wow!
But heavy cruisers, typically carried 8 to 10 inches of armor. 5-inch guns were never going to pierce that. The most that they could do was mess up the superstructure and set fires.
Yep.
I mean, at one point, one ship was actually firing 5-inch guns at the Yamato.
It's got better range than spitballs, but not much.
Not as effective. The Yamato's main belt, if I remember correctly, is 26 inches thick. There's a chunk of it at the Naval Armaments Museum that was used in testing against the super heavy armor piercing shells from the Iowa class's 16-inch 50 cal guns, where it went through. It's an awesome little piece. That is a massive block of steel, and it's just peeled like a flower.
That's amazing.
But the destroyers, the Japanese mistook for cruisers and were firing armor-piercing shells at them. Every one of those destroyers took more than one hit from battleship 18, 16, and 14-inch guns, firing 1-ton shells. But
Oh,
as it's usually written up, caused little damage as they just went through.
yeah.
Not,
Typically in naval gunnery, you want the shells to explode inside the
yep.
hull of the ship in order to ideally break a keel, because then they go down quickly and you
Well,
don't have
you
to deal with them
also
anymore.
you break boilers. You destroy boilers and steam systems. You can do all
Hmm.
kinds of damage. But destroyers carry. We did not put any armor on our destroyers.
No, because armor was expensive and we wanted to save it for things that mattered.
Yeah, and you couldn't put enough on it to make a difference. So
Yeah,
that's how U.S. destroyers got the nickname tin cans.
yeah.
And the book on this battle is Last Stand of the Tin Can Sailors. It's fantastic.
Hmm.
But armor piercing shells just went right through without
Oh yeah.
exploding.
Yep.
Yeah, so never mind. It's just, a 16-inch, almost 2,000-pound projectile just went through your ship long ways, but it didn't explode, so we're okay.
Yeah. We, we still have power.
Yes.
We're
So
still underway.
I think in both tonnage and weight of fire, that little escort force of 3 destroyers and 3 destroyer escorts was outgunned by like a factor of 100.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
And later on, some other aircraft were able to get involved, and the end result was that 2 of the escort carriers were sunk by
Hmm.
battleship gunfire. The Johnston, Hull, and Samuel B. Roberts were all sunk, while the Japanese lost 3 heavy cruisers, the Chokai, Chikuma, and Suzuya, one of which actually just had its bow blown off by a torpedo and was severely limited and wasn't sunk till a couple days later. But total American losses, this was the largest loss of American naval personnel since the Battle of Midway,
Hmm.
at just about 1,000.
Yeah.
Japanese lost 2,700 personnel,
Yep.
largely due to fires and shrapnel effects on the decks from 5-inch guns shooting hopelessly, basically, against heavy gunships.
Yeah.
And I'm being very brief because I could spend 3 hours talking about this easily. But can you imagine being on this little, on this little ship that has less than 100 people manning it, hitting flank speed, bursting out of a rain squall and smoke screen make a fucking torpedo run against the Yamato battle group.
Yeah.
Literally the largest, at that point, the largest warship ever that had been put to sea. To this day, the largest battleship that was ever made.
Mm.
One good hit from a battleship gun would turn a Fletcher class inside out.
Yep.
And these guys, after they were out of torpedoes, continued making dry runs at them to try to scare them off and let the carriers get out of range.
Yeah, because the carriers had more men and more material that was
They were more,
needed.
yeah. The goal was to smash through Taffy 3 and then start shelling the Leyte beaches.
Hmm.
And the force could have done that if they'd managed to penetrate. There
Yeah.
were some serious mistakes made by Kurita along the way, but ultimately, 3 little tiny ships that never should have been in that engagement held off the last real throwaway of the entire Japanese fleet,
Yep.
and potentially saved the initial landing force at Leyte.
Yeah. Which
And
was an enormous number of men.
yes, I mean, can you imagine being there? I mean,
Recently
naval
landed 130,000 men of the Sixth Army were left vulnerable to Japanese attack on Leyte.
Yeah, and those 18-inch guns
Mm-hmm.
would do a number on stationary targets.
Oh yeah. Well, because they just stand off.
Yeah.
They've got the range on everybody.
Range, yeah. Ideal range for the Japanese battleships and cruisers was about 20,000 yards.
Yeah.
The Army didn't have anything to go up against that.
Mm-hmm.
And Halsey dragged off the entire U.S. main force to chase after toothless carriers. So, which left 6 men on little tiny ships in an engagement they were not built for, that they had no business being in. And the crazy part is almost half of them survived.
Yeah.
But they did it, and they knew that their chances were practically nil.
Yep.
And there's of course enormous respect for anybody for anybody who's willing to put themselves there. But it's something that we've romanticized, and I think is a natural thing to the male mind to romanticize. Which now I'll bring Joseph's comment, which this is one of the other big ones. The Alamo for me took the
Yeah.
kids last year. It was hard not to cry while talking about it to them. Yeah, that was another one. Died to a man,
Yep.
and how and at least in part from their sacrifice, the Republic, the Lone Star Republic became a thing. But every one of those men paid for it with their lives, and that stands today, almost 200 years later, as an everlasting testament to their dedication to their families, to their nation,
Mm-hmm.
and to their beliefs. And I think that is the romantic part for us, is you do one great big thing that stands as an eternal monument to what you were willing to die for. And that goes back to something we said, I think, in episode 2 or 3 of, yeah, sure, you'd die for your kids. But are you ready to man the fuck up and do the real work?
Yep. Of living day in and day out, doing the tedious, boring, unpleasant stuff that keeps a family going.
That nobody's going to put down in some epic fable to be passed down through generations.
Oh yeah. The choice of Achilles is exciting and it's inspiring in some ways, but it's not really that uplifting. It does not keep people going in the same way.
Mm-hmm.
Showing up and doing the hard work of being a husband and a father does.
Yeah. So that's why that was the caption for the episode.
Mm-hmm.
Shield wall? Sure. More
Get ready.
diapers? Hell no. So I'm sure you feel that.
There are days, man.
Are we potty training yet?
Oh no, 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 no. We're at 18 months, and he has shown zero interest.
Yeah.
And it's
It
going to
gets
be a
worse
bit.
when I start eating real food.
Yeah, we do that. You liked the chili the other day. He likes
Dad
tortillas and
wasn't so
yogurt.
appreciative the next day.
Say that again.
I said Dad wasn't so appreciative the next day.
Look, man. His bowels are working just fine.
But yeah, I mean that is that is that romantic idea of I can do one great thing
Yep.
and show forever. But that's not what your kids need.
Well, and it's not true for the vast majority of men for the vast majority of history. Um,
Absolutely not.
And frankly, the reality is that most of those men's wives and children would prefer them that they have come home instead. And
Absolutely.
it's hard to say. Well, they got lucky. In a sense, they absolutely did. They signed up for their. They enlisted. They, however you want to put that, for the various men involved. Um, I think of the again Sabaton's the Last Stand, where the Swiss Guard held off an enormous number of rampaging hooligans, so that the Pope could get into the, what was that, the fortress of Saint Michael,
San Angelo.
San, no,
I believe
Castel
it
San
was Castle.
Angelo, yeah,
Yeah, Castle San Angelo. Yeah.
which I should know, um, but they that most of them died. The captain's
All died.
wife, all of them died, and the captain's wife was watching as her
Yes.
husband was cut down.
Yeah,
But
because he retreated to their home.
yeah, but they held it off. They held off and kept the Pope from probably dying.
Well, being murdered.
Yeah, well,
And that was mutinous troops of the Holy Roman Empire.
there you go.
Well, it was Emperor Charles the well, excuse me, not Emperor, but King Charles the Fifth had a bit of a case of the ass with Pope Clement, and
That whole period got really messy,
oh, it did.
especially in Italy.
Yeah, well, especially when two-thirds of that mutineering army were German Landsknechts, who were
Yeah,
mostly Lutherans.
the opportunity to put an end to some papists was, I'm sure, near and dear to their heart. Um,
Yeah, the sack of Rome was crazy. Some of the things they did specifically to defile anything and everything associated with Catholicism.
yeah, that's that's a subject for,
Something else.
yeah,
It's
absolutely.
on this
Yeah,
show.
that's really realistically beyond the scope of our conversations. Um,
Yeah.
it's worth a look into for anybody interested, though.
Oh yeah.
There's nothing like a family fight for viciousness. I'll put it that way.
Yeah. It's a good way to put it.
Um, okay, so is that what we secretly want, and if so, why?
Yeah. Why does the Die Glorious fantasy hit so hard?
Because I could stop doing all of that crap.
Exactly. Because the day to day is wearing, and there is no anything in it.
Yeah, there's no
It's just
glory.
you get up the next day and you do it again. And we said last time, I'm just doing the minimum. Well, fact is, we're not doing just the minimum, but this is what you do every day, so it feels that way.
Oh, absolutely. Um,
Yeah. And Joseph says, I did many foolish things when I was young, but once my daughter was born 7 years ago, doing foolish things were no longer an option. I now have 3 kids and my wife that I must be here for.
yep.
Foolish things like running off, like running off to war.
I mean,
Sometimes it's necessary,
yeah,
but yeah, I mean that's at this point we're going to have to figure out how an excuse to bring John Ringo on here because we end up quoting him so much.
that's fair.
But I go to one of my least favorite main characters who I still love,
Yeah.
Oliver Chadwick Gardenier.
Yeah.
Chad. of the
That MHI
giant
grunge.
ones.
Yeah, the mm-hmm.
Grunge saints, yeah, grunge saints and sinners. No, grunge sinners and saints.
Sense, yeah.
Who said, "Death is light as a feather. Duty carries the weight of mountains."
Yep. Not the only place I've seen it in fiction, but
That's the one that's the one that comes to mind, probably because I've played those three audiobooks many times, and you can't beat Oliver Wyman's voice for carrying the weight of that statement.
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, to have the opportunity to make your final testament and seal it in your blood and be done, and everybody knows forever that's where you stood.
Mm-hmm.
Some days that sounds pretty damn nice.
Yeah. It
Yeah,
it
which is,
sounds a lot easier than showing up day in and day out.
you show up once and you push through and then you're done.
Yep. And I like that idea.
Yeah,
Part of me likes that idea. The part of me that is a an angsty 15-year-old really likes that idea.
yeah. It's incredibly romantic,
Mm-hmm. It
and
is.
you're done. So how does that mess with our ability to show up for the daily grind?
I'm not sure, honestly, that it really does. At least personally, it's you know, self deletion is a piece of a piece with that. It's a much dimmer reflection thereof, but it is certainly there is the same sense of I can finally be done with things.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
I
but
mean, for me, I have myself, usually because I'm reading something, get a little caught in my head over, just kind of the glory and grandeur of that, the tragic last stand
oh, absolutely.
that makes doing the daily work feel a little dreary.
Mm.
It's like I could be doing bigger things.
Oh yeah,
Well, but could you really?
it's hard to say. Could I mean all other things being equal? Probably. There's probably a way I could have done greater things, but the concatenation of events that leads to that is not usually something that any one person has any real amount of control over. You rolls your dice and you takes your chances.
Yeah, but where I was going with that, would those bigger things actually be bigger to your kids?
Oh no, absolutely not. Um,
Maybe as adults,
yeah,
30 years later when they can understand it.
a
But
certain
as
a certain
kids,
appreciation for yeah, my dad was there. My dad did that thing. That was important. But there's a
but
lot of tears between then and whenever your child can say something like that.
yeah, there's a lot of I wish my dad were here.
Yeah.
I wish my dad could see this.
Yep.
Hey, Dad, I hope you're watching.
Yeah.
So
I
really,
would rather
I
be
mean,
there for my
they
children.
they feel bigger
Hmm.
in the historical narrative. They are bigger, but for the people that actually matter,
Yeah.
Mrs. Dave does not want to be a Gold Star widow.
No. Fortunately, there's basically zero chance of Dave getting recalled to active duty for
Yeah,
anything. I am well outside the age limits at this point that they are usually interested in, and frankly, they've got young and foolish people who can take that
yep.
my place easily.
Yeah. So as glorious and everything else as the Last Stand is, that final testament and exclamation point on life.
Hmm.
The real strength is in showing up, and the real impact is in being present.
Yes. And I'll tell you, that is one of the things that has actually proven to be somewhat difficult. Not showing up. That's actually relatively easy, and that's you just keep getting up every day, and you put your trousers
Motions.
on one leg at a time. It's actually being intentionally present,
Yep.
because there's so many distractions. I know that there have been plenty of times in the last several months where the kids have been right there, and we've just been had to tell them, "Hey, need you to mind your little brother and let us finish this conversation or finish this process. We have to do this piece of work so we're that much closer to getting back into the house." And it's not like I don't want to interact with them, but they need to not get underfoot.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's easy for me to to get wrapped up in my work.
Hmm.
The whole creative process feeds something inside me. I can get out in the shop, get in my zen zone, crank up some music,
Yeah.
and go, oh, holy shit, it's 9 p.m. and I haven't eaten since breakfast at 6:30 this morning.
Oops.
And go, oh shit, has my oldest son eaten dinner? Well, no, because you didn't remind him to eat dinner,
Right.
and now he should be showering and getting ready for bed. Instead, we're figuring out what we're going to feed him.
Yeah.
You know, I have it's a blessing and a curse to have my work right here at the house,
Yes.
because I come into the office here and I can be working on editing stuff and doing posts, and trying to figure out how to properly suck up to the algorithm to expand our reach. And I can do that when it's too cold or it's too late to be making noise in the shop. I have my shop right there. Downstairs, I have my, oh God, this sounds really arrogant, my other shop.
Yeah, fair.
My little reloading room where I've got all the stuff for reloading. I have all the gun maintenance stuff. I have the vise down there for
Hmm.
various things. That's where I, about every other year, rebuild the KitchenAid. Where I go take the other, little metalwork stuff out of, from outside of the wood shop. I'm putting together electronic stuff for a car, of course. And then I also have the vehicles that always have something I can be working on.
Yep. Oh yeah. No, there's always there's a list of projects, and things items fall off and items get added, and there's always something that you can be doing.
Yeah, and I'm driven to always be doing something, because sitting and doing nothing feels really bad, which I need to work on.
Hmm.
But my point is I can be here at the house and all my kids can be here, and I can let myself get so wrapped up in my work that I might as well not be there.
Yeah.
Short of somebody's bleeding or somebody's screaming and they interrupt me,
Yeah.
and that's not being present.
No, not especially. Um, as we have told the kids, you need to put the book down or the screen down. We are having a conversation. I need you to be mentally present, not just
Mhm.
physically present.
Yeah, and I'm missing out the opportunities to interact with them
Yeah.
over various things.
Yeah.
Much less, missing. I generally don't forget to feed all of them, but sometimes there's only a couple of us that can slip.
Hmm.
But that's the real strength, is being present.
Yeah.
And Again, the unhinged dad's drinking game. Take a shot every time one of us says intentional,
Ha.
but being intentional about it. God, I'd be so shit faced right now if I were playing that.
No, that's fair. Um, it is very easy to lose track of those kinds of things. It just is like, and I drag the kids all over the place, doing running errands and things. And are we interacting much?
Sometimes no.
Sometimes no. Sometimes yes. Um, I, I like actually driving. We like long road trips with the kids because we have often fairly long conversations, where we can expound on various things that we've learned, and hope that some of those messages work their ways into the kids' subconscious, so that in 20 years they're like, oh, that one time
Yeah,
Dad was talking about, yeah. um, or maybe maybe they don't make a couple of the mistakes we've made. Maybe
yeah.
they
We
do.
hope.
We don't know. Yeah.
Last year, our summer trip is we road trip out where we'll spend a week with Nick and Alex somewhere. I was driving our van. I just had my two older boys because the youngest one wanted to ride with his mom, and the girls were riding with her in the other car because they had just gotten their driver's licenses, and so they were taking turns doing the long distance driving thing.
Nice.
And we were not putting new drivers in the 12 passenger van
Yeah.
because that thing's massive.
Yeah. That's not. No, no, don't do that. Just don't do
Yeah,
that.
we're actually selling it this summer because we never actually need to drive everybody around anymore. But it's been useful.
Oh yeah.
I had my boys, and we're driving for 12 hours, and they had just gotten into D&D,
Mm,
which, dude, my autistic son has
wow.
like seven different player manuals and stuff. He obsessively reads them from cover to cover repeatedly. And then he goes and corrects the DM on stuff.
Yeah, I was gonna say his poor DM.
Well, that's Jared Edgeweirden
Yeah.
at
Yeah.
the county library
Yep.
gets to deal with the kid who's memorized
You
multiple
know,
tomes of
it's.
rules.
I have. Oh goodness. I've experienced a bit of that. I was running games at the local Y for a while, a couple summers ago, and definitely had a kid who really understood the rules, and you just kind of got to go with it at a certain age, and eventually you can be like, okay, I want you to remember the part about Rule Zero. Yep, about the DM gets to make decisions and choices on rules. Yeah, that sometimes I'm going to say something that contradicts the book, and I have good reasons for that,
Yeah,
and that may not help. It depends on how.
depends on the kid.
Yeah, it depends a lot on the kid.
But the point I was going to, um, our road trip. We got the audiobook for the first of Dungeon Crawler Carl,
Mm.
which they were completely absorbed by.
Oh, I imagine. I, dude, lit RPG is it hits one of those places, especially as I don't get a lot of time on a computer myself, where it's like, I remember these things. This is nostalgic. Yay!
Yeah, when it's done well.
Yeah,
Now, fortunately, we didn't have enough driving time to get later in the series where things got really dark.
yeah. Well,
But that's I kind of expected that's where it was going. But the first two books were incredibly fun, and so my boys are laughing their asses off the entire way. We had a great time,
yeah,
and Joseph is on the wavelength with us. Says, and
yeah.
being present can be damn hard some days,
Mm-hmm.
especially after a long day at work or just a lot going on. But trying to be dad for them, play with them, and listen.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, when I've, you know, sometimes I deal with a lot of self-imposed deadlines that are made up by me, and then I beat myself into trying to meet them. But occasionally, occasionally with client work and stuff, I do have deadlines. And if I'm stressed and something's gotten in the way and I've got to make up time to still deliver this on time, getting the getting the young kid stream consciousness, I'm telling you everything that pops into my mind right now because I think you're awesome and I just want to talk at you,
Yep.
can be the last fucking thing that you want to listen to.
Oh yeah. Oh well, you you met my daughter.
Yes, I've had 3-hour long conversations with her that I couldn't get away from.
Yes.
Not saying that I felt like a hostage very
No,
much,
but
but
it is fortunate for her that she is so charming and engaging.
yes. I mean,
Because,
it is fortunate that that a conversations like that is not 3 hours of reciting memorized Pokemon stats,
yes,
which I may have some experience with.
you may have some experience with. As I recall, our children all have some of the same Pokemon books.
Oh, dude, my oldest. One of the other things she's now making money at is live streaming opening Pokemon cards.
You know, I'm doing something wrong with my life, except that
Well,
she's a lot
you're not
cuter than I am.
you're not 18 and beautiful,
It's true. I wasn't
and
beautiful when I was 18.
neither was I. I'm not. Yeah, she is, and she's a total Pokemon nerd,
Yep.
and she gets excited over stuff. I mean,
You
so she's
cannot
buying
counterfeit
cards
enthusiasm.
like 5 days a week,
Yeah.
and she's making more money off of live streaming it than she's spending on the cards. Of course, now she's filling up 5-inch thick binders
Well,
and is completing master sets of. I had no idea there were so many variations of Pokemon cards. Holy
dude,
shit.
it's as bad Magic the Crackening
Bad.
and yeah, and Warhammer 40K. You know, you can get into. At least they're not doing drugs.
Well, I, I could make an argument that it's kind of is a drug, but
It kind of is. Yeah, well, the dopamine hits. Get that.
yeah. But next time you guys are here, if she's around and starts bringing out books, your oldest is going to flip.
Mm-hmm. He'll be bloody impressed, is what he'll be. Yeah.
He'll be like, I want to marry somebody like her.
Okay. Good
Go
luck
worse
with.
than nerds generally.
Yeah. Right. I mean, yeah. We're
But yeah, being present even when it does feel like a chore, because unfortunately, no matter how much you love your kids, no matter how delightful and charming they are, some days just interacting with them and going along with what pleases them and interests them is a chore.
yeah.
And it feels like it would be a hell of a lot easier to go stand in a shield wall and then get stabbed in the throat.
Yes. I mean, at least that is exciting. Briefly.
Yes, but Pokemon stats are not. And Joel asks, is she even playing the card game? Experimental Model Mark 1 was collecting the cards without even wanting to learn to play. No, I've never seen her play anything with them. She just collects the cards.
Well, I mean, gotta catch them all, man.
Yes, that's something that applies to Pokemon cards and not to STIs.
Yeah, that's
Looking at
good.
you, sailors.
You know, there are pills for most of those things these days. I'm
Most of them. Yeah.
I hear tell.
Yeah, gotta catch them all,
right?
except for varieties of syphilis. Guys, come on,
They don't do that.
don't do that. So yeah, that's the whole thing. Showing up and being engaged and being a positive force when there's no dramatic music.
Yeah, because
And
most
the
days there
epic, yeah, and the epic speeches are reciting the stats of Pokemon cards.
yeah, yeah. I walked the dog before getting online for the podcast tonight because the dog needed walking.
Yep.
Um, I I am fortunate right now in that my youngest is very engaging and very delightful and likes to snuggle.
Oh, he
Um,
does. Yes.
oh yes, oh goodness, he was most displeased that he was being taken away from Daddy as we were getting things going tonight.
Yeah, I heard.
Yeah, yeah.
It sounded like microphone feedback.
He can be very piercing. Um,
Well,
he's
pretty
only
much all children of that age can be.
hit like Nazgul levels of screech a couple of times, but yeah.
Huh.
Um,
Where was it?
to-
Oh,
yeah.
Joel says, "Gotta say, I've never had this martial fantasy you've been discussing." That may I don't know if that's a fact. I don't know if that's a factor of mindset or differing communities we grew up in. Because I know,
Mhm.
yeah, I don't know because that's always kind of been a thing for me from a young age. But yeah, and he nails this quote: "To live would be an awfully great adventure."
Yes.
It truly
Yeah,
is.
it is, and it's especially if you look at adventures as terrible things happening to somebody, um, which
And sometimes that somebody's not even you.
yeah, well,
Not that
you
you or
know,
I do much of that.
I say I've gotten kind of used to it, so I'm more than willing to shoulder some of that burden for other people, if I can manage that. Um, Substantial adversity breeds resilience.
Yes, it does. And resilience breeds thoroughness.
That's true.
Which is where like for me right now, the hardest thing I'm doing is facing up to shitty things I did years ago and trying to fix it.
Hmm.
Um, Catching an arrow would be um, more painful for a very brief period of time, but it would take a lot less work.
Yep. Yeah.
I don't know, and maybe this is a mindset that's more common to those of us who were martially inclined, which so few of my friends are not. So it
That's
feels
fair.
really universal. Maybe we're way off base, and most normal people listening to this be like, "What the hell are you guys talking about?"
Well, if so, do let us know in the comments.
Yep. And Joseph, on the other side of that divide, we would play Last Stand battles as kids. Yeah, I mean, when I discovered history books, trying to make my friends reenact stuff where everybody on one side died. I mean, this goes back to parenting as a time traveler. When I was 12, 13 years old, during the winter, we would have BB gun battles. With like the Red Rider, or the spring powered BB guns that really wouldn't break skin, but we're wearing
Mhm.
we were wearing our heavy coats, and we put on safety glasses. We were modern.
I would say that's surprisingly foresightful.
And we would literally run around in the empty fields around our houses, shooting each other, trying to reenact battles. And inevitably get into fights over who actually died and who got hit first.
Yeah. Yep. Which
But
I've seen that very thing happen at the paintball field. So,
Hmm.
that's not like that stops happening.
We didn't have the money for paintball. We had our BB guns from when we were like 8.
Oh, I did. That was within the last couple of years. So, don't.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, money. Who has money?
I don't know. Government took most of mine. Bastards. The joys of self-employment when you actually have to cut checks instead of having it deducted before you ever see the money.
Right?
Which actually, if I could change a couple of laws, I would make that illegal. I'd make everybody have to write a check at the end of the year and have elections the week after.
Yes. No, I like that
But
idea.
we don't do the politics here. We try not to.
See, that's like societal and stuff, man.
I think so. I
You
think
didn't
that's
tell
a
anybody
I
who to
think
vote
it's a
for,
pretty universal
right? You didn't tell
feeling.
anybody who to vote for.
Nope. So yeah, that is sometimes a dilemma. Join a shield wall or get up at 3 to change another diaper,
Yeah.
or to walk around a colicky baby who is inconsolable when laying down.
Or to referee another fight between siblings while you're trying to keep another one entertained enough not to start screaming.
Or show up for yet another T-ball game where every play is a comedy of errors
Yep.
and you're torn between trying to manage the younger siblings, excuse me, and not knock out the parents who are way too into it.
Right. Who clearly don't understand that the winning is being able to play and being able to be there to watch their children play.
Yeah. I did not get to do youth sports until I was like 5th or 6th grade. I
Mm,
think I think we just couldn't afford it, and by that time everybody had so surpassed me in athletic ability that it was just not worth doing. It was not fun at all.
yeah.
Didn't help my dad was really into it and super competitive.
Yeah,
You know,
that checks out.
why are you so fat and slow? You could have done that. Thanks, Dad. I love you too.
Right?
But yeah, I think we have covered the topic.
Dude,
I think we've had
that's
some good
impressive.
interaction.
Yeah.
We can call this now our shortest episode.
Wow.
Hey, 90 minutes may actually work better than 2.5 hours
Two and
for
a half
people who
hours.
want to listen.
2.5 hours is mostly us having conversations and going down multiple rabbit trails. Honestly.
Yeah, but yeah, and Joseph points out those diapers can be pretty stinky. Little man's been dropping bombs. Facing a charging horde of Persians might be easier.
Well, olfactory exclusion is a thing. In the heat of battle, I'm told that you
Everybody
don't
shits themselves.
notice it at a certain after a certain point because everybody smells like that. Yeah, there you go. That sounds terrible.
Yeah, but
So
you die instead of
I say,
instead of having to
I guess the moral of the
live
story is pregame.
in
Apparently,
way.
oh, you just try to clear out your colon before you go into battle. Clearly,
Yes. Okay.
apparently, the English had uh, was it dysentery at Agincourt had so bad that many of the longbowmen went into battle not really wearing anything
That's right.
below their
Pantsless.
waists. Yeah, because it was more important to be able to keep firing arrows.
That sounds extraordinarily unpleasant.
Dude, the more I learn about the historical realities of warfare, I think it continues to be one of the more foolish pastimes that humans engage in.
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna jump into this earlier. You know, I'm absolutely nerd out over naval history. You know,
Hmm.
particularly the dreadnought era. That whole thing of we every country that was a self-respecting country had to have at least one battleship,
Yeah.
preferably many of them. And how many major battles were actually fought with battleships?
Like battleship on battleship?
Yes, there were two.
Who? Yeah.
There was Jutland,
Yep.
and there was the chase of the Bismarck,
Yeah.
where Hood was destroyed. Prince of Wales got in a few hits,
Yep.
but the mighty Bismarck was sunk by a couple of canvas winged swordfish biplanes that were horribly out of date.
Whatever works, man.
That was that's that kind of whole tragic thing is literally billions in resources were poured into these things. They were the pride and glory of an empire, and they
And they
did
they just
very
weren't
very
that
little.
useful. Yeah.
Well, they could have been if everybody weren't so afraid of losing them that they
Yeah.
would not they would not actually use them as they were intended to be.
Is that why the Scots wore kilts? You know, I suspect it
Actually,
has more to do with the sheep than defecation, but
I was going to say, Joseph, do you know why Scots wear kilts? It's because sheep can hear a zipper from 100 meters away.
you know,
Of course, Dave. That brings up why do we wear kilts?
um, because kilts are cool. Uh, Sometimes, literally, that is what's going on because
True.
the breeze between the knees is quite pleasant when it is, 114 degrees out in West Texas.
Yeah, I have one that gets used for. Um, it's been thoroughly destroyed with wood glue and such. But during
Hmm.
the summer, while my shop is still non-air conditioned, it can be 110 degrees in there.
Yeah.
And yeah, any air movement is quite welcome.
Yep.
Oh yeah, and Joseph points out the Texas did fire on German positions at Normandy. Well, yeah, I mean that was the primary thing that our big battle wagons were used for was shore
Yeah.
bombardment.
Absolutely. Because again, you
That's
can you can outrange the coastal artillery
yeah,
by a lot.
12, 14, 16, 18-inch guns. You know, there's it's the fat electrician video that he did on USS Wisconsin firing
Hmm.
on the North Korean battery.
Yeah,
Welcome to Toyota Thon, motherfucker.
yeah,
As slinging 2,700-pound shells. Well, actually, it wasn't. It was shooting 1,300-pound high explosive shells, not the super heavy armor piercing. But
right.
we don't need to split hairs.
That's still a VW bug.
Yeah, which naval gunfire. Our we talk about artillery, the king of battle.
Hmm.
As far as mobile field guns, I'm going to ignore the like railway guns of World War One as an aberration. But
Cool aberration, but yeah,
oh yeah, but NATO's entirely standardized on 155 millimeter. That is a 6-inch gun.
yeah,
The big Russian ones, and you have to remember the Soviets' entire battle doctrine were saturate with artillery fire and send peasants into the back of it.
yep,
If you're not losing 10% of your men to your own shell fire, you're not trying hard enough. It was basically how the Red Army approached all land warfare. The Russians were obsessed with
so
artillery, and the biggest
sounds
guns they used
Soviet.
were 8 inches.
Hmm.
200 millimeter, 8-inch guns. Whereas we were building ships firing 16-inch and 18-inch guns. Those are big, big shells.
They're huge. Anybody who's been to the Missouri, um, or again the Texas, those are some enormous guns. They're just huge.
Okay, entire reason that I want to go to Hawaii is the museums.
Yep. Oh, they're it absolutely worth it. Absolutely worth it. The going out to the Arizona Memorial is something else.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Naval combat's horrifying. I mean, there's not just drowning in sharks, but superheated steam and
Mhm.
people being trapped in compartments as they
Yep.
buckle. It is viscerally scary.
Yeah.
I geek out over the technology, and when you remember the human side, that each one of these ships had over 1,000 people manning them, and that many of them are littering the bottom of the ocean as perpetual tombs. It is terrifying.
Yep.
Although speaking of the Missouri, and speaking of awesome cinematic scenes,
Mm.
there is one terrible, terrible fucking movie with 5 minutes that is awesome. Do you know which one?
Pretty sure I do. Yeah.
Thanks, Hasbro, for Battleship. Most ridiculous, stupidest movie.
We knew
And Liam
people.
Neeson. Liam
Yeah.
Neeson makes the worst U.S. Navy admiral on film. Stupid concept, badly written movie. The 5 minutes of we need to borrow a ship and having a bunch of guys who'd sailed on Missouri when she was active, in an hour reactivating her and having Mighty Mo
That is
steaming out of the harbor
that is
to shoot at aliens.
absurd, but glorious.
It is 5 minutes of completely self-indulgent awesomeness
Yeah.
surrounded by 2 hours of dreck.
Yeah. Getting the Mo ready to sail would take a lot more than an hour.
Yeah, and of course they happen to have live shells on board while
Right.
she's in service as a museum ship.
Because that's what you do with a museum ship. Yeah, you keep explosives on there.
Of course they kind of pissed on the whole dramatic bit there because the super dramatic bit
Mm.
is these guys hauling the last shell from inoperable turret X up to turret B. These guys are shouldering this shell and struggling under the weight of it, while the hoist that runs down that passageway is right there, made
Right there.
to do precisely that.
Yep,
It's like,
guys.
really, guys, it's like, God, I hate Hollywood. But still, the Missouri steaming out of harbor to fire a full broadside against aliens
Yeah.
was fun.
Yep.
Don't
Speaking
don't bother with watching the whole movie. Just find that 5 minute section on YouTube.
speaking of desperate last stands.
Yeah, gosh, yeah, that one little bit was awesome. The rest of the movie was so bad, so bad.
Yeah, we actually knew people because when they were doing the filming, they needed sailors. They needed outfits. They needed uniforms? Was that they needed, and so they called on a bunch of sailors, off-duty sailors, as basically extras, so they could get some shots of manning the rails in dress uniforms, etc.
Oh yeah, the other bit from that movie that irritated the hell out of me is holding some ceremony for a joint exercise with the Japanese Naval Self Defense Force
Yeah,
on the deck of the Missouri.
I mean that's just kind of funny, honestly.
I mean, I can see that happening. I can also seeing, that's in really poor taste.
That was in really poor taste. Hilarious,
It's like
yet poor taste.
with the Navy actually, you know what? In the 50s and 60s, the Navy absolutely would have done that.
Oh yeah, yeah, because a lot of the guys remembered it.
Yeah. But today, I'm not sure.
Um, I think given recent events, we might be able to get away with something like that. Uh,
Yeah, I mean, I personally favor renegotiating treaties and doing away with the self defense force crap and just letting Japan rearm.
yeah,
But that's geopolitics stuff, not dad stuff.
right. Like
But
again, I have opinions, but they are not well educated ones.
yeah, I have more feelings than educated opinions on that one. But let's wrap this one up. So yeah, guys, some days it'd be much easier to be standing a shield wall with your brothers. And if you die, you die gloriously with in an event that'll be remembered for hundreds of years. That tales and movies will be told of hundreds of years after your demise. But the real work is to show up every day, to be present, and to be a force for good on the small scale.
Mm-hmm.
Because this generation you're raising may only be a handful of maybe only excuse me shit I need more alcohol to not stutter like that, which is actually true. I stutter less, but damn it, Joseph. Yes,
Oh,
I
you're
want
not the only one,
Gundams,
man. Yeah,
dude.
yeah,
I'd be in favor. I'm if letting Japan rearm is the price for that. Cool, let's do it.
I'm on board.
Ignore the geopolitics. I want Gundams,
Right,
preferably without kaiju to go with them.
preferably.
But I don't know, Gundams are pretty awesome. Of course, I could also go for space battleship Yamato being a real thing.
I almost made a reference to that earlier, but it didn't quite fit the topic.
Yeah. But yeah, guys, that's the real work because this generation expands and your effect as a dad, if you are intentional and you are involved and actively trying to be a force for good in your children's lives is I mean, it honestly is butterfly effect level shit.
Yep.
You know, butterfly flaps its wings in China and you have a hurricane hitting Florida, which would be a pretty good case for eliminating Chinese butterflies.
Right.
But or ripples in a pond
Yeah.
starts at one point and expands out and impacts everything around it. And that is our true legacy of who you are as a man is who your children grow up to be and who their kids grow up to be. And hopefully through teaching by example and trying every day to be a little bit better, to suck a little bit less, because invariably we are going to screw up. We have to allow ourselves to screw up, and we
Mm-hmm.
own up for it. We try to learn from those mistakes, and we move forward. Something I'm very much in the middle of right now. But if we can teach our kids to just do a little bit better every day, a couple of generations from now, society will be unrecognizable, and in a good way. I hope.
Yeah.
I mean, we I see a lot of black pilled people online who are just fuck it all, everything's gone to shit, we might as well give up, society's over. I've got 6 members of the next generation who are turning out pretty awesome.
Yeah.
I have hope,
Yep.
and honestly, in bringing them up to be better than us and to raise a generation that's better than them, that is actually a greater effect, I think, than dying at Thermopylae. As much as it may be remembered, and as much as your daily, the daily dad duties are not going to be celebrated. You don't have a herald following you around making up songs about you, which honestly would be really fucking annoying.
Yes.
Instead, you have a half pint size of a half pint version of yourself jabbering at you. Yeah, I'd take the kid over an obnoxious bard all day.
Pretty much.
So we will wrap this one up. We tried to be a little more concise today, and I think we succeeded. So, guys, if you are enjoying or finding some value in what we're doing, please be sure to like, share, subscribe. Honestly, with the daily short clips, help share those around. That will expand our visibility, which will bring in more interaction on the live streams, I hope, which is kind of my favorite part of this, aside from just bullshitting with one of my best friends. And hopefully help us expand to the point where this thing pays for itself, which will make it much easier to keep doing in the long term.
Yep.
So with that, I am going to... Where's my cursor? Pull up the video tab, hit the closer, and we will catch you guys next week.
Peace.
All right, that is it for tonight's episode. Thank you for joining us. Quick reminder, all opinions expressed here are solely those of the individual speakers, hosts and guests alike, and do not represent the views of any affiliated person, organization, company, sponsor, or other entity. This show is provided for entertainment purposes only. Nothing discussed is professional advice of any kind. Always consult a qualified professional and use your own best judgment before acting on anything we've talked about. Again, thank you for joining us, and we'll catch you on the next episode.